So now we have installed our Raspberry over here on our sales LAN on the 11 network. We want to turn that Raspberry into a web server. In order to do that, we want to install the Nginx program, the Nginx web server program software. So let me bring in Workstation here. We have our assignment 53, Raspberry Pi, it's PC2. I will fire that up. And we have it there. Now, in order to install the Nginx web server, I went onto the internet and I found this instruction on how to install the Nginx web server on this web page. So all we have to do is to type in and sudo apt install Nginx. So let's do that. In order to do this, we have to get the Nginx, and we can see here there's a problem. Our Linux here wants to connect to the FTP file transfer protocol server Debian at the address debian.org. And we do not have internet access on our PC2 here. We do not get anything installed. So I'll press Ctrl+C to stop the process. And we have to give our PC2 internet access. Let me move Workstation out of the way. What we have to do is that we have to connect PC2 to the internet. To do that, we will connect to VMnet 8 and we will disconnect from the sales LAN like this. So this is all we will have for our PC2 connected to VMnet 8. So let me bring in Workstation again. I will shut down my Raspberry here. I'll change the network settings, my networking adapter. I'll connect to VMnet 8 that I know is NATed, network address translated, like that. And I'll fire up my Raspberry again. We will have to go in and set our network connections here. I'll right-click the connection icon up here. I'll actually first disable the networking so it's stopped. Add a new connection, a new Ethernet connection. And it's all set correct because I want to use automatic. So I'll call this VMnet 8. Save that. And I'll choose my VMnet 8 over here. And I have connection. VMnet 8 is active. Let's check out what IP address we have got. Our IP address is this one. We have it here. So that is the address that we have got by the VMware Workstation Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP protocol. So this is our IP address on VMnet 8. So let us ping the Linux repository root server. And we have access to it. I'll press Ctrl+C to stop the ping process. So what I'm pinging here is actually the Linux repository server out here on the internet. And we can see that that server has this IP address, but we don't need that for anything. We should now be able to install our Nginx web server. And if we look at the instructions on the web page, install, and the Nginx server should already be up and running so we can immediately test it. I'll open the browser, type in the localhost IP address here. And there we have it. Our Nginx web server is up and running. If we want to use the real IP address, let's check that out again. This here. Yes, we also have access, obviously, to our web server on its on the web server's IP address. But we want to have our web server over on our sales LAN. Our web server here should be on this network over here, the sales LAN with connection via VSIX to the other networks. So the VMnet 8 should be taken away again, and we should connect to the sales LAN. So let us do that. I'll shut down the Raspberry in order to connect to the sales LAN. I'll open up the settings again to switch my network connection to the LAN segment, which is sales LAN. Here we go. LAN segment, sales LAN, and power back on. The Raspberry is now powered on, and we can see that our network connection here is not working properly. We want to move it back to Ethernet 0 static 11.2. So I'll bring that in, and we immediately have that up and running. We are back on the sales LAN. This means that if I fire up PC1 here, then I should be able to connect over from PC1 to PC2, or in other words, then I should be able to fetch the web page over from PC2 to PC1. So I'll fire up my browser here on PC1. I'll type in the IP address of PC2, my Raspberry web server, and the port number. I'll actually leave out the port number because my browser will by default use port 80. And here we go. This is the page over from the Raspberry. If I want to shut down my Nginx web server here, I have found a guide for that on the internet. This guide here, how to start, stop, and restart my Nginx with system control commands. So let's first check out the status of our Nginx web server. And we can see here that our web server is active and running. So that's nice to know. Press Q, simply Q, in order to exit the status for the web server. Let's try and stop the web server. Let's move over to PC1 and try and refresh the web page. Oops, it's no longer available because we have killed the web server over on our Raspberry. So no web server running here at the moment. Let us restart. Our web server. I'm ready to move over to PC1 to check if the server is up and running again. I will and it is up and running. If we no longer want to use our web server, we can obviously uninstall the web server. This command will do the trick. That's it. We can try now and look for the status of our Nginx web server. And our web server is gone.